Greetings, investigators. My name is Detective Sins, and welcome to another installment of Synopsins. Today we're covering a psychological thriller movie remake from 2006 titled When a Stranger Calls. Watch out for spoilers and let's get into the video. The movie starts off with a montage of the carnival late at night, accompanied by the sound of children's laughter. Soon, the scene pans towards the side of a man's silhouette standing against the window, followed by a blood-curdling scream muffled by the festival's crowd. And as the stereotype goes, no one was there to notice it. The following day, an officer named Lewis receives a murder case report. A detective, Detective Hines, was also invited to help the investigation. When approaching the crime scene, Detective Hines asks Officer Lewis in regards to the killer's murder weapon. "There were no weapons," Officer Lewis replies. Despite not providing much help, Detective Hines shared that this is a murder case he encountered many times before. Wait. So you're telling me you've encountered this many times before and still couldn't solve the case? Either this murderer is really good, or this detective gotta get his shit together. As Detective Hines uncovered the murder room, he was mortified to be welcomed by what we can only assume to be a massacre of 3 children and 1 babysitter. Changing scene to Fernhill High School, we're introduced to Jill, your average high school girl from the track team. You know, sporty, angsty, a little bit bitchy. All the traits of your generic trope of an American white girl protagonist back in the days. After finishing her practice, Jill goes to see her friend, Scarlett. Jill tells Scarlett that she can't go to the bonfire because Jill has to babysit. It's her punishment for being on the phone for too long, which supposedly caused her parents quite a lot. While the other students are getting ready for the bonfire party to be held in the evening, Jill's father, Ben, takes her to the house where she will babysit. As they cruise through the mountainous road decorated with foliage, Ben tries to initiate a conversation with Jill. He attempts to confront Jill on the hard decision that Ben has to make as a father. Now, I'm not great at parenting, nor do I have experience being a parent, but it really isn't that hard to make a punishment for your kid. Then again, maybe that's because I came from an Asian household where they'll kung pao chicken my ass if I do anything slightly irritating. Their conversation comes to a halt as they admire a scenery that screams extravagance and exquisite taste, the Mandrakis family home. Now hold the fuck on. You could have gone and let your daughter babysit anywhere in the city, but you chose one that's so remote and out of field where reception probably won't even reach? That, my friend, is the perfect setup for a disaster. When they arrive, Dr. Mandrakis welcomes Jill on his doorsteps. Jill then toured the house guided by Dr. Mandrakis' wife, Kelly. Kelly also shows her the list of numbers that Jill can call in an emergency situation. She also tells Jill about Rosa, the housemaid, who lives on the top floor of their house. After finishing the tour, Dr. Mandrakis and Kelly leave the house after he inputs the code of the alarm system, just in case. Now, hear me out. You're really going to trust some teenager who, let's be real here, is emotionally unstable to be left alone with your kids in the middle of nowhere? You have a house so luxurious but you can't afford a damn security guard? Really? Jill gets tired of waiting, so out of her curiosity, Jill then explores Dr. Mandrakis and his wife's private room. Not only that, she also tries on some of Kelly's jewelry. Okay, not gonna lie, I was a bit disappointed. At this point, I thought Jill would be discovering a little bit more, naughty, if you catch my drift. She hears the sound of a moving door, which makes her quickly rush out of the room and pretends to read a book. Jill assumes it was Rosa's voice, but she spots Rosa in the greenhouse, feeding the birds and fishes there. The alarm system goes off, so Jill quickly enters the pin to turn it off. Kelly calls Jill, saying that the alarm company called her. "Did the alarm wake the kids up?" Kelly asked. "No," Jill replies, "they're still sound asleep." "Well, don't wake them up because they're still very sick right now." This pair of idiots, the Mandrakis, only have one level of security, and that's the alarm system. They're so secluded that there wasn't even a police station within a mile. The moment it goes off, you're really just gonna brush it off as if nothing happened? Really? Not soon after, Jill gets another call. A man asks if everything is okay. Before Jill had the chance to respond, the call ends. She starts to be concerned about who could be in the house. She arms herself with a fireplace poker and searches the garden to the kitchen, but she finds no one. This idiot thinks, oh, you know what? I'm an adult. I'll poke them to death if there's an armed intruder. The phone rings for the third time. At this point, I wouldn't even bother answering. I don't know why, she was so curious. Complete nonsense in my opinion. She answered. Tiffany shows up out of nowhere and she says that she's stopping by to take Jill to the bonfire, but Jill refuses for fear of getting into trouble. Jill tells Tiffany to go home immediately. However, as Tiffany is about to leave, a massive tree branch blocks her from exiting. Tiffany tries to get rid of the branches before being attacked by something. And this, my fellow investigators, is why you shouldn't go out of your way to be nice to people. Not long after Tiffany left, someone bangs on the front door. When Jill opens it, there is no one. Jill sets the alarm and locks the door. How the is she not shitting in her pants right now? Jill gets another call, but this time it was from Tiffany's cell phone. Jill picks up the phone and a man answers the phone. Jill is scared, so she voicemails Kelly to tell her to reach out to Jill as soon as Kelly sees it. Jill then finally calls the police to report the call she gets from a stranger. As she calls the police, she sees Rosa's car and feels safe, naively thinking that it could have been her, although she hasn't been seen for the past hour. The officer tells Jill to be careful and call back if Jill needs anything. Bruh, she called you because she needed help. That response is as useful as my ex telling me, call me if you need me, right after she dumped me. Jill calls Rosa and she tries to follow the direction of Rosa's ringing phone in the laundry room. Jill turns off Rosa's cell phone after finding it in her bag. A man calls and asks, have you checked the children? Okay, this is pretty funny. You know this was set back when things were way too serious. If you try to pull this off with Gen Z, first of all, they wouldn't even have the balls to answer the call. Secondly, they're probably going to troll you, so like, yeah. After she rushes to the children's room, the man calls again. Knowing that she is being watched, Jill closes all the curtains in the house and immediately calls the police. The police suggest that Jill should stay on the phone line with the stranger for 60 seconds so that they can trace the caller. Now, you might be wondering, is it true that the police can trace phone calls? The answer is yes, it is true. But only in the 1970s where police needed 60 seconds to trace the call. Since the 2000s, the police are able to trace phone calls under 60 seconds using a triangulation phone tracking device, which is similar to GPS in many ways. Multiple towers are used to track the phone's location by measuring the time delay that a signal takes to return back to the towers from the phone. Times were hard back then. Jill sees someone's reflection from the guest house's window, so she decides to check it and finds out that the guest house is empty. Again, how the is her pants not wet right now? The phone in the guest house rings. She manages to stay on the phone line for 60 seconds, but she realizes that the stranger calls from a different number, so the police can't trace it. Jill sees that the light in Rosa's room is on. She quickly runs to the main house. Jill's phone rings after she gets in the main house. Jill asks why this man keeps calling her. The man then replies, "Your blood all over me." The phone rings again. She is pissed off, but before she says anything, the police states that the call were coming from inside the house. Before she hears the police's instruction, she sees Tiffany lying stiff on the floor with her cell phone ringing. Jill becomes hysteric. She immediately heads out to the children's room, but they are hiding in the playroom. She tries to find a way out, and when she looks up to the ceiling, she sees a stranger watching from up there. Alright, wait, so let me get this straight. The alarm went off, the stranger or murderer is inside the whole time. He then decides to play prank calls, cause why the fuck not, right? He could have hit anywhere, but he decided to hide up in the ceiling. Putting aside the question on how in the name of whatever did he get up there, but why even go through all that trouble? What kind of shitty kinky play is this? You know what? I certify this moment right here as a sin. Jill quickly locks the playroom and orders the children to get out of the room from a window that leads to the greenhouse. Jill and the children manage to escape from the room and then they try to hide. Jill turns on the sprinklers in the greenhouse so the strangers can't see them from the outside. Smart. Jill tells the children to hide while she will hide under the water. Not so smart. Jill discovers Rosa's dead body under the water. Perfect. The stranger enters the greenhouse. As the automatic sprinkler turns off, the two Mandrakis children accidentally step on the rock and make a sound. Fucking idiots. The children run to the door that Jill had previously locked but can't reach for it. The stranger lets the children run away while he searches for Jill. The stranger tries to get a hold of Jill, who is still underwater, but Jill manages to overturn the bridge, causing the stranger to fall into the water. So now we know that the murderer not only likes girls that are hard to get, but they're also into asphyxiation. Jill unlocks the door and searches for the two Mandrakis children who are hiding. As she sees the birds out on the stairway, Jill realizes that the stranger has managed to get out of the greenhouse. So basically, the stranger apparently has superhuman strength to break bulletproof glass, but gets beaten by Jill when it comes to grip strength. She searches the two children and finds them in the fireplace, the safest place you can store your soon-to-be barbecued children. Jill manages to take the two Mandrakis children out of the house, but the stranger catches her. He closes the door and blocks it. The stranger chases Jill up the stairs and grabs Jill's leg. The situation becomes more intense until Jill managed to stab the stranger's hand using a fireplace poker. Guess it did come in useful after all. She rushes out of the house into the police officer. The police calms Jill by saying that she is safe. The police also assures Jill that there are 4 other police officers who will keep a close watch on the stranger. Both Jill and the children are safe. Days later, at the hospital, we can see how traumatized Jill was as a result of the tragedy. She screams uncontrollably while the doctors and her dad desperately try to calm her down. And that is the end of our story. So, how do you actually survive such a situation? There's only one step. Keep a fireplace poker at all times, cause that shit's gonna save your life. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you like this video, go ahead and click that like button down below. Subscribe if you want to see more content just like this, and ring that bell to get notified whenever we post a new video. So investigators, you are dismissed.